Hi everybody, this is Jason Eagle, your Natural Health Authority, Strategic Healing, and we're doing another show, and today we're going to do a show on stem cells, how to regenerate, how to produce stem cells naturally. Jason Eagle, your Natural Health Authority. My website is strategichealing.us. When I talk about products and things like that later in the show, in terms of things, you can go to my website, the shop, and you can buy these things and you can come pick them up, or I can ship them to you. You can call me, you can come in and have an appointment. I can test you for stuff, but I can also just recommend basically what to do for health. This in particular is about stem cells. And people have heard about what's called stem cell therapies, and that's medical procedures. And we'll talk about this, but quite frankly, most of this information that I have, I've known, but I did some research on this and I've got notes on this one. And a lot of this came from it was basically harmonizing with what I've been telling people. But this is from the perspective of doctors that say, if you're going to have stem cell therapy, meaning coming into the office and we're going to inject them or use them topically, there's a lot of ways of your own stem cells. And most of the stem cell therapy right now is not coming from, let's say, fetal stem cells. It's coming from your own stem cells, basically taking your blood out and spinning it, and then injecting it back into your body. They talk about, well, what should I do to get my body ready for this, and what should I do to help this afterwards? But this also translates into, what can I do instead of that? What can I produce my own stem cells? Instead of having a stem cell treatment, can I have it where my body, I stimulate the production of that, and then my body will stem the stem cells? So let's get to what are stem cells, okay? Well, first of all, what are you? You are cells. Any living creature, animal, vegetable, are stem cells. And cells, okay? And cells are protein, okay? You take a skin cell, a heart cell, a blood cell, that is protein. Also, other cells that live inside you, which would be called probiotics, including other things which are, or biotics, which are harmful things. So there are helpful probiotic, which is, basically other living creatures that live inside you, but also then there's the harmful ones that live inside you, and they are also too made out of protein. Your immune cells are made out of protein, okay? So let's get into what is a stem cell. Well, first of all, let's say your body, as I said, is made out of cells. Well, those cells first started with two cells, which is you had a grouping of cells. So before you were born, you actually started off as your mother's egg and your father's sperm, and those are made up of a whole bunch of different cells together. That union happened. There was a spark of life, which we can actually see. So what is talked about in religion or theology, the spark of life, is actually visualized. You can see this in a electron microscope. You can see this, which is once the head of the sperm dissolves, and actually it's the egg which allows, the egg picks the sperm. Unless you are sticking a needle in and injecting it and forcing it, the cell, or the female cell, or the what's in the female, which is the ovum, it selects which, because it's surrounded by a bunch of sperm. There's all trying to get inside there. It selects where it dissolves. It picks that one and says, oh, I see life in you. I feel that life in you, and I'm going to allow my membrane to be dissolved by you. And so the actual selection happens by, it's both of them. The sperm has to have what it's looking for, but it has to be allowed in. And so then when that happens, there is a spark of life. Literally, there is a electric spark, and you can see this. It's a biophotonic spark. Okay. Then what happens is the cell starts dividing, and it goes from one cell to two cells to four, then blah, 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 and then it starts to literally create the flower of life, where it's a three-dimensional type of thing. And then it starts to form a bigger cell, and then that cell then implants itself into the wall of the woman's womb, and then that's where the blood cells then start to attach, and then that forms the umbilical cord of, then that's what feeds the baby, and then the baby starts growing, and it starts growing cells, okay? Well, then after the baby is born, the body keeps growing. Okay, now let me tell you this. We have this perception of the body that it's like a house or it's like a car, which is, think about a house, which is they dig the hole, they then bring in a bunch of building materials, they build it up, and then boom, it's built. And then same thing as a car, it's built, and then you run it on the road, and then it starts wearing it down. The rain wears it down, and so how does that, if you don't do anything to that house starts falling apart. Or if you don't do anything to that car, that car starts falling apart. If you don't do anything to the body starts falling apart. The body's different. Okay, so to fix the house, you have to have somebody come in and strip the paint off and repaint it, or replace the old boards. You got to take it out and put it on. Or for instance, a car has to be stopped. It has to go into the shop, and you have to take the oil out and put the new oil in. You have to change the brakes and all this other stuff. So you have to actually change body parts. Your body is doing that. It changes body parts, but it's different than that, which is your body is more like a 3D printer. Because so think about, let's say, that car, instead of having to go in the shop while it's driving, imagine little nanobots that are going through and replacing where the dent is. It will replace that dent. Where the rust is, it will replace that. It will go. And so that's what the body is like. It's not like you start young and grow up and then start falling apart. I don't care. That's what it looks like. But what's really going on, because we know this, which is every 7 years, every cell in your body has been replaced. And that includes brain cells. We used to say, oh, don't destroy the brain cells, because once they're dead, they're gone. That's not true. You replace every cell in your body, including brain cells and bone cells, every 7 years. Now, some are replaced within seconds. Cells have lifetimes, okay? So what that means is you are constantly replacing cells, and every cell starts off as a stem cell. And a stem cell is like a blank sheet of paper. So then again, like I talk about how the body makes cells. How do you regrow cells? How do you make scar tissue? How do you heal scar tissue? How do you make new blood cells? Okay? It's just like a printer, like a regular printer, okay? So everything and a stem cell is a cell that is basically a blank piece of paper. Think about a blank piece of paper, and you put it into the printer. It starts off as blank, and you can put anything you want on that. You can print words on it, you can put pictures, you can make things out of that, okay? So a stem cell starts off as blank slate, nothing has happened to it, it has no memory, and it doesn't even know what it's supposed to be, okay? And so it's a master cell. Then it turns into what's called a daughter cell. And daughter cells are essentially, they're not the same thing as like your own. When you start off as a baby, you're making new cells, and each cell has its own full DNA. But a daughter cell is more of like a clone. It only has some of the DNA. It doesn't have all of it. It doesn't have all the copies. So stem cell then turns into daughter cells, and then which are essentially clones. And so we've always had cloning. We've always been doing cloning. It's always part of that. And then that clone has a choice. It can go this way and it can go this way. One, it can then turn into new stem cells and start the whole process all over again. So literally it can replicate, self-renewal, blah, 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 go back to the beginning and start all over again. Or it can turn into what's called specialized cells, which are differentiated cells, which I like to say it's like an actor. An actor is a person that shows up to the set or shows up to the theater and says, what am I to be today? Based upon the script says you are supposed to be an old person. So even if you're 12 years old, think about a stage play. You just have them wear the clothes, you have them wear the makeup and actually hunch over, right? If you go way, way back in past, all actors, no matter what play it was, this was the Japanese, this was the Romans, this was the Greeks, is they were all males. So even if it was a female that was on stage, it was really a male, and what turned it into a female is just the clothes that it wore, its makeup, its script, so really it was just a blank slate. And then, so when we get into differentiated cells, so this is the whole thing about injecting stem cells. So if you go to straight old stem cell therapy, like we kind of know, which is a medical procedure, they take some of your blood out, or they take some of your bone marrow, or they take some of this tissue out. They then take it in the back room, they spin it, they take out very specific stem cells, and then they inject it into that part of the body. Now these stem cells have then turned into the daughter cells, which then, now what makes them specialized in the sense of they show, so it's like so when you inject these cells, say for instance, into the shoulder, how does it know to become the shoulder? Because when it gets into that area, it starts to resonate. It basically starts to look around and says, hey, you guys, what are you doing? Oh, I'm becoming, or you guys are all a cartilage and a shoulder cartilage. Oh, I will become, and it goes, blah, blah, and it morphs into that, and then it starts to change and it becomes that. So a differentiated cell, or the specialized cells, can become anything, but what it becomes is it becomes a fresh new copy, meaning it doesn't have the memory of damage. And in fact, the DNA, so let's say you take a cell that has become older, and now instead of being all fresh baby new, like that's the hope of a stem cell, is like, can it go fresh and all nice and tight and plump and beautiful like baby skin, as opposed to old leathery skin. What is old leathery skin? It is a stem cell. So take a person, so for instance, who's had a scar, and that scar has been there for 40 years, okay? That scar has had, keep in mind, like I said, every 7 years it can become, so theoretically, within 7 years, it should go back to baby cell all over again. Well, why doesn't it? It doesn't, because the DNA has, basically the script has some missing information in it. The DNA has some missing codes. It has damage to it. It has what's called mutations. And what it does is it becomes that haggard cell, and because it shows up on the scene going, okay, I'm fresh new and I could become baby cell if you want me to. Oh, okay, well, this is what we're doing. All right, then blah, blah, and then it morphs into a damaged cell. It's not actually a damaged cell. It's program damage, and it's actually memory, and it's memory. So like you remember what has happened to you. But wouldn't it be great to be like a dog, which is, you know, the dog, you can spank him before you leave and he's cowering in the corner because he pooped in the corner and now he's afraid and feels, you know, punished. You walk out of the door and you're gone for 5 minutes or 5 hours, and when you come back, it's wagging its tail and it's like, oh my God, I don't remember being hit. It doesn't remember it unless you really, really, really damage it, and then it becomes stuck like that. But even those dogs, if you treat them well, they can. So I'm using this as an analogy for the cells can return, because every cell has a background copy, no matter how mutated it's become. And that's what a stem cell is it has the potential of going back to the original copy of saying, what were you before you became damaged, right? And it's really the memory of that. So the whole hope of stem cells is, can you reverse the aging process? Can you reverse and can you repair? This is a whole series of what's called regenerative medicine. Now, regenerative medicine is, as we typically like to call, especially stem cell therapy, as some form of medical procedure, okay? And again, your body is doing this all the time, whether it's a medical procedure. This has always been life, is you create stem cells and you're creating new ones all the time. Now, as we get older, we don't create as many of them. And so the whole point is, the more that you have, the more actors that you have that show up fresh and clean, you know, the bigger the production is. And in fact, you can rewrite the script, okay? So now I'm talking about, how do we do this naturally? How can we increase this? Meaning, how can I stimulate the production of my own stem cells? Okay? So, and again, like I said, your body is a 3D printer. It's doing it no matter what. So how do I give it fresh new cells? How do I give it brand new paper so it can do anything that it wants with that paper? Okay? So the activation of stem cells, I'm going to go through tech, right? And this is over-the-counter tech, and some of it actually is you can go to some practitioners and doctors and things like that, and they use this, and you can actually just hire them to do it, okay? So I'm going to do tech, I'm going to do behaviors, meaning there's a lot of free things that you can do sitting at home with, basically you don't have to spend any money. It's how you spend your time. And these things are free to you. And these are some of the most powerful things. In fact, the most powerful thing is 100% free to anyone in the world. And it's to animals and everything like that. And then we get into supplements and foods. Okay, I'm going to go. There's a huge list of all of these things that we can do to stimulate the repair and growth of good stem cells. Okay, so number one would be tech, and that would be lasers. So dental, a lot of the most modern dental are using lasers, including, surgical lasers. Instead of using a scalpel to cut, or instead of using a drill to grind out and get rid of the dental decay, they're using a laser cutter. And the laser cutter will then, at the same time as it cuts this bad stuff out, it burns it out, it also stimulates growth and goes into the DNA of those cells. Chiropractors actually have these lasers, very, very powerful lasers. Here in Michigan, there's a Dr. Howard Manila, and he's got this 40,000 watt, basically this is the really super powerful ones that they use like in the NFL. When these guys get injured, instead of being hauled off for everything, a lot of times they'll go on the sidelines and they'll do some therapies and they'll use a laser technique, and it literally will speed the process up, and it will increase the proliferation of stem cells and start to repair the cells right while it's going on. Acupuncture, including what's called prolotherapy. Prolotherapy has been around for a long time, and instead of injecting stem cells into the body, they're injecting in that same area lidocaine, which would be, that's the numbing agent. So they use that to kind of numb your teeth. But there's a whole world of, you got a bad shoulder, and instead of having the shoulder surgery, can you regrow that shoulder? Does it have to be stem cells, or could I produce my own stem cells? Prolotherapy is, and it's been around for Dr. Klinghardt. I forget a couple of other ones. It's been around for a long, long time. This is the beginning of the mud pack therapy, that you can also do this non-invasively with the mud packs that I do. And what it does is, so let's go to the prolotherapy, or the acupuncture is by sticking a needle and even injecting saline solutions, which is just salt water. It shouldn't do anything. Little micro injury, what it does is it sends your body's immune system, and then it will send new cells to go there. And then these new cells that go to repair this little micro damage of the needle, what it does is says, oh, while I'm here, I'm going to actually start fixing things. They can combine prolotherapy, acupuncture, with some laser therapy, meaning, so again, they are regrowing teeth. Eventually, dental is, we won't even have, you got a bad tooth, a dead tooth, you won't do root canal anymore. You won't even do implants. They're doing this with children here in America, but they're doing this with adults now over in France, and they'll start bringing it over here to America, which is, let's say you got a bad tooth. Tooth breaks off, or tooth gets infected, and now it has to be pulled. You pull that tooth, and then what they're going to do is they're going to take some of your cells, they're going to spin it, they're going to spin the stem cells. They do this with children right now. And then they make a little, kind of like, almost like a little egg. They implant that in the area, close it up, and sew it back up, and then basically stimulate it with lasers, and then you will come in multiple times and get laser treatments. And then what happens is you will regrow a new tooth. You grow your new teeth. This is happening right now. We're getting to the point where you'll grow a hand, you'll grow fingers. They're actually growing fingers back, all kinds of things. And through your own body, right? So the prolotherapy actually helps you to regrow a new shoulder. Now there's also stem cell therapy, okay? But like I said, we're not talking about stem cell therapy. We're talking about sub-therapies that do the same thing, but get your body to do it. There's magnetic therapy. You can actually use magnetic stimulation on a bad hip, scar tissue, these types of things, on the brain lesions and all kinds of things. Because if we've got, let's say, brain damage from a stroke or things like that, you got to take those old cells out and put new cells in there, okay? So these are these tech things. Now we get into behaviors. Okay, what are some of the things? I want to start with the top of the list, the thing that is free to everybody. In fact, it saves money, it will make you money, which is don't eat. Intermittent fasting, and fasting has been in caloric restriction, meaning do I, just skip meals. Intermittent fasting, skip breakfast. All the way down to fasting. You can fast for a whole day, do a water fast, do a juice fast, up to 3 days. I've done a 7-day fast. The 3-day fast is the thing that really kicks in this angiogenesis, and actually you will produce more stem cells. There's a ton of this. Caloric restriction, again, skipping a meal. And basically, they notice when they feed animals, say rats and mice and stuff like that, when they put them on the fat diet, when they get the fat rats, they die quicker, a lot quicker. The ones the skinny, where you give them 1 meal a day, or let's say skip a day of feeding, maybe a day a week or 3 days per month. And that's kind of what they've shown in terms of the real healing process in terms of producing stem cells is that 3-day window, which is if you can do once a month, not eat for 3 days, that kicks in this whole brain process because it stimulates basically the survival mechanism of like you're on the run and you don't have food, like that show like Naked and Afraid. 3 days without food, you actually get better at finding food. Your eyes grow, the actual eyes grow, so your eyesight grows, your hearing grows, your fast twitch muscles, because you're starving, and so your body goes, I'm going to make you a better hunter. And so this is used actually in the MBA and other things and for people who are doing, for instance, a lot of events, meaning preparation for certain things. Instead of feeding it, they stop eating for 3 days, which then stimulates, and on the day of their workout or the day of their event, their body and their brain works better. This is a good preparation for, you want a kid who's preparing for the SAT or ACT, have them do intermittent fasting and have them basically fast for a day and not eat the day before, even if it's 3 days. Again, this is based upon your level of health. But if you're healthy, you can handle it and actually will make you smarter, make you remember things better. There's other things. So that's these stress things that are on the system. Ice baths, okay? Basically taking cold baths or what's called contrast therapy, which is ice and sauna and ice. The old techniques of the Russian baths, the Turkish baths, the Roman baths, of where they would do massage and exercise, where we get the word gymnasium from, where we get the word the frigidarium, which is the fridge, because it was a cold room, and you went from here and you got a massage to then the hot room, and then to exercise, and then to the cold room, and then cold and hot and cold and hot, and it squeezed your tissues and caused stress. Exercise does this because what it does is it causes your body to react to that stress and says, oh, I need to build new cells. I'm going to turn these little factories on, which then you will start spitting out stem cells like crazy. Okay. Exercise is the top of the list, but some of the most newest type of exercise is, and again, weight exercise is on the top of the list. Anything that stresses the muscles and causes a little bit of micro tearing, and that's what weights does. That's why the older you get, the more that you need to do weight-bearing exercise. But some of these new things, the vibro board, we have one and it vibrates your body. It's called the vibro plate. It stimulates and it vibrates your bones. It vibrates all your cells. Basically, it's like micro shaken baby syndrome. And that causes your body to go, ooh, wake up and start stimulating and produce more stem cells. The thymus, thumping the thymus, pituitary, which is the growth inside your brain. The hypothalamus is inside your brain. How do you get those things to vibrate? Singing and humming. That's what cats do when they are literally purring. This is when you're doing that yogic type of om. You can play with words, and again, just make it buzz, and you can move the buzz. You can move the buzz to my throat. I can move it to my chest. I can move it up to my head. You can feel it. Change the frequency. And sonic vibrations, whether you do it yourself or there are different techniques in terms of binaural, meaning you lay on a bed and it pumps these waves into your body, these sonic waves of sound. Sound therapy will do this. There's another thing that can stimulate the deep part of the brain, which is called the limbic hack. The limbic system is the deep psycho-emotional part of the brain, and all cells maintain memory. Water maintains memory, and these new stem cells that have no memory, what if you, instead of just wiping the bad memory, you give them a good memory, and now they come in there. So this is what scents like the deep-seated scents that are based in all of our brains epigenetically. That would be things like lemon, that would be orange, rosemary, eucalyptus, coffee, chocolate. A lot of these things are deeply embedded and can be used as aromatherapy to deeply stimulate. There's a lot of research on people with autism and a lot of brain damage stuff that use these scents while they were developing. And there's a great example of a guy who was born. He was this baby that was found in a garbage and he had parasites, and he had amoeba. He had these amoebas in his body, and he was going to die. And he had brain damage, and when he was a little kid, he literally was way beyond the curve. But he had a doctor that had worked with him, a natural holistic doctor, that started using scents, and now this kid actually is an adult right now, and he graduated, and he's got like a 200 plus IQ, super genius, super smart. But he wasn't. He was basically retarded. He was brain damaged. But what repaired him, because he built stem cells, and he built new stem cells, and he repaired the damage, and then what was hiding inside of that person, we don't know if he was a genius or that's what made him grow into a genius. But it was the stimulation of the brain through aromatherapy and other therapies, but in particular the aromatherapy. So don't poo-poo it. It's really very powerful. Think about it. You think about cinnamon. Most people will think about grandma or some, warm fuzzies. And now you actually are transported there and your emotions feel better. That's you secreting serotonin and dopamine, these healing hormones that are linked to the production of stem cells. Okay? Sleeping. It's a free 7 to 9 hours. Produces melatonin, good dream sleeping. You can actually take some melatonin too to help you sleep better and help you to produce melatonin that is produced in the brain while we're sleeping, pineal gland. It will then turn into serotonin, so you can sleep well, plus you can also take melatonin. These are huge in terms of growing a new body, a fresh new body. Okay, now we get into another thing, which is oxygen restriction. One of the websites that was a website that was for a stem cell therapy thing, going, what should I do to prepare for it? What should I do afterwards? What should I do to help this work better? And the thing at the bottom is go on a vacation to high altitude. So literally going to a place where there's higher altitude, less oxygen, restricting the oxygen, you produce more stem cells. Again, the stress forces becoming what's called hypoxic. Literally will produce more stem cells. Now there's a couple other things that you can do. You can go to hyperbaric therapy, and not only can they increase the oxygen, they can decrease the oxygen. There's a place called the Oxford Recovery Center. Dr. Joel Kahn did a thing on this, and I really support them. They have one place in Brighton, they have another place in Troy, and they can do this where they can reduce the oxygen. There's another company that makes, so a lot of people that are doing exercise, there's what's called EWOT, exercise with oxygen therapy. Basically running on a treadmill or on a bike with the oxygen mask. But the newest therapy, it's actually not new, it's been around for a long time, this company called Live O2, and it has this oxygen generator that goes into a bag so that it actually makes a reserve. But it has the switch on this. So what you can do is while you're exercising, while you're wearing this mask, it will reduce the oxygen anywhere from 21% down to 14%, which causes your cells to become really need oxygen. And then, so you'll exercise, start pumping and pump hard, and you go into an oxygen deprivation. I do this when I'm swimming, which is I hold my breath when I swim. You go into hypoxia and then you start breathing. So swimming is another way to do this. But this O2 therapy, which is the live O2, you flip the switch and then it goes up to 80 to 100% oxygen and then back to normal oxygen. So what you're doing is you're switching from I'm choking to full. And what that does, it's what's called adaptive contrast or altitude contrast. This is one of the number one things with the cold therapy and intermittent fasting, that this is the top thing that has been shown to literally produce the amount of stem cells and all throughout the whole body. By training, so this live O2, which is this altitude contrast, by training with oxygen depletion, your cells quickly create a demand for oxygen. They need it. And then instead of just taking the mask off and going back to normal oxygen, you're going to increase oxygen when you flip the oxygen. And now your cells absorb more oxygen. And what this does is that it creates this where the cells become adaptive to it, makes them be actually better at utilizing oxygen, better at getting rid of carbon dioxide. But again, the stimulus causes the body to produce more stem cells. And this is amazing. This is actually huge. And it's not just for where you want to put the stem cells. So let's say you got a bad shoulder and you get some stem cell therapy. Well, what's going on in your shoulder is going on in other places in your body. And so rather than just getting it in your shoulder where you think you need it all over your whole body. So these natural therapies actually get you to stimulate it, and it goes to wherever it's needed. And it really, basically, your cells will tell you where it's needed. Okay, we did that. Yep. So, and again, another way to do this is actually by exercising, by reducing the oxygen, holding your breath. Now, holding your breath is hypoxic, and it's not the same thing as actually reducing the oxygen. That's why altitude is actually the best way to do it, or this oxygen hyperbaric, reducing the concentration. This was shown in that movie Deadpool, and the reason is this is how they create super soldiers. And this is true because what you saw in Deadpool, which is when they caused a person to go into this low oxygen where they almost die and then bring oxygen, and they just keep cycling through this, it forces a mutation in your cells, and that's how they mutated him. That's how they created this, basically Deadpool, which has had this huge healing ability. There's truth in this, and this goes much deeper than you can possibly. Now, I don't want to turn into a super soldier, and I don't want you to do him, but a little bit of that could be helpful. Basically, can you age better? Can you heal better? And can you stop from growing cancers? Because what was inside that movie was he had cancer and he was dying from cancer, and this stimulated his body to create this anti-cancer. So literally he didn't get cancer, and he ate cancer up before it could. So this is what actually can happen with this. Okay. Another one things of these behaviors is reducing triglycerides. Reducing triglycerides are the different types of trans fats. And it's what's shown in your blood. By getting rid of the hydrogenated fats, the crappy fats, and eating really good fats, okay? The plant-based fats, olive oil, coconut oil, this type of stuff, even grass-fed butter and these types of things. And I know that there's this debate about saturated, polyunsaturated, and blah, blah, blah. But the more natural, you don't have to worry about it. Just go natural and go organic and go raw, all of these things. Reducing sugar. Sugar feeds the bad cells. When we reduce the amount of sugar, that's why the keto diet can be very, very helpful for people, because what it does is, or again, don't even go keto, which is high protein, high fat, low sugar. Just go low sugar. Because the bad cells that are the damaged cells, they feed on sugar, and they eat it first. Same thing with cancer cells. They eat it first, and they get it, and then it basically makes them grow faster. So if you starve it of the sugar, then they don't grow as fast. And what does grow is your healthy cells, and you get on top of it, especially the healthy stem cells to actually repair. Another thing is, is blood donation. Basically taking some of your blood out and replacing it with blood. And don't have them don't take the serum out. Don't let them, put it back into you, because you can have them take out basically the plasma donation, which is they take the plasma and then they spit the stuff back into you. No, just donate your blood. Have them take it out. And because when you take those red blood cells out, or blood, your body will have to produce more blood, and so it effect cleans your blood out. This is another one of these different types of therapies that you can do. Yoga breathing, stretching as long with exercises, but the breathing exercises, even to the point of the bliss experience. Again, if you get into that state, or when you are meditating or praying or singing or dancing, or even orgasm type of stuff, which is with good sex and stuff like that, you release these chemicals or hormones that are, again, the bliss experience. Dan Winter, he's got a website, Fractal Field. They built a bliss machine that can measure this, and you can create it in your brain and create it in your heart, what's called heart coherence, which is the bliss is not just in my head in terms of that feeling like, oh man, I feel good and I feel loved and that's a bliss experience. Could you learn how to do that? And if you could learn how to do it like an exercise, that produces stem cells too. Okay. So now let's get into the whole supplement world, which is foods that I can eat, supplements I can take that produces stem cells. One of the top of the list, everyone agrees, is D3. D3, which you produce through the sunshine, but you can also take it in foods. So, D3 supplement, and again, through sunshine, you will produce it. Vitamin C. Vitamin C is another one that's top on the list, because vitamin C helps produce collagen. So the reason that people died from scurvy, which is they started bleeding out of every orifice when they were on a ship and they were eating hardtack. That's why the British were called the limeys, because they found if they gave them a ration of limes or apples or oranges or lemons, that was enough vitamin C to keep. So what happens is the collagen shrinks and then reduces size, which then causes splits between the fibrin, and you get cracks. So like that dirt that you see that gets dried up on the ground and it forms cracks. That's what was happening in scurvy. So vitamin C helps you produce collagen, which makes your skin nice and plumpy. Okay, but again, collagen is a protein, and it first starts off as a stem cell. So vitamin C, we've always known, produces stem cells, which then turns into differentiated tissue, which is, oh, okay, you want me to become collagen? I'll become collagen. You want me to become cartilage? I'll become cartilage. You want me to become a red blood cell? I'll become a red blood cell. So it's just feeding, like basically Legos. The little Lego pieces is what then you can make, or Minecraft, basically a stem cell is like Minecraft, which is you can make anything out of that you want. It's just the basic building blocks. Okay. Resveratrol, which we find in grape, red wine, but red wine can also be hard on some people because a lot of sulfites and there's a lot of pesticides and a lot of the grapes and stuff like that. So resveratrol that is made from giant knotweed, Japanese giant knotweed, which is, again, these are all things that you can get from my website, resveratrol liquid. Green tea, not only drink your green tea, but you can take green tea extract, you can take green tea liquid, the polyphenols and all these other things. Excuse me, literally one of the top things that science has found, medical research, chemistry research has found, and these are things that all date back to, they all refer, when you look at the studies, basically all of the PubMed studies and all the literature, it first starts by saying, okay, this is stuff that's been known for history. The Chinese were doing this for thousands of years. We document the Indians. This is old world stuff. And they have looked at this stuff and they go, you know what, it's true. And there's all kinds of things that have shown to work. Like I said, the top things have been the green tea, have been the resveratrol, turmeric, mushrooms, chaga mushrooms in particular, but again, even cordyceps mushrooms and these things which are good for the immune system. Why? Because they help to build your immune system. Are these cells, T cells, white blood cells, macrophages, all of these things, they start off as a stem cell and then become these cells. So if you want to produce greater immunity, then produce more stem cells. There's another one that actually produces more energy in the cells. Every cell has what's called the mitochondria. The mitochondria is the thing that makes ATP and makes energy, the little factory. So think about a cell, okay? Think about this. Every cell in your body, whether it be a blood cell, whether it be a heart cell, a brain cell, an eye cell, a skin cell, okay? Muscle cell, bone cell, doesn't matter. It's all the same. Imagine that cell is like the Titanic, okay? The Titanic was a ship, and it was a ship that had these 4 smokestacks, okay? And each of these smokestacks that came out of them came from, there was a furnace, and there was a furnace that literally, they filled coal into it. So it was a coal-fired furnace. Now, which then that furnace ran a turbine that was making the propeller go. So the propeller is what made the thing go fast or slow or even backwards. So how did it go? It went because the guy, if you remember the old ships, the captain who'd go ding, 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 and that little thing, and that would send a signal that would say, go faster, go slower. So how did he make the machine go faster? They went faster by, same thing as an old steam engine train. How do you go faster? You have to build more steam, so make a hotter fire. So the mitochondria inside the cell, think about the boat as the cell. The mitochondria are those smokestacks, okay, which are these furnaces. So you make the cell go faster by stoking the fire. Throw more coal into it. So what makes more energy in the mitochondria is CoQ10. CoQ10 produces more energy, basically stokes the fire, which makes it go faster. Okay, but what happens if we need to go faster and we've now put them in, we've made all 4 of those furnaces as hot as they can go and we still need to go faster? How would you do that? Well, if you could magically make more furnaces, add 2 more smokestacks, then you would actually go even faster. So this is a supplement called PQQ, pyrroloproquinolone, but again, it's part of the quinone. What it does is it produces more mitochondria per cell. So you can grow more energy, more engines per cell, and then make them more efficient when you combine CoQ10 with PQQ. Again, you can get this at my practice. Glucosamine chondroitin. Again, this has been used for you can often get it from like green lip mussels from seashells and stuff like that. I'll tell you another great way too, and I did a video that I've gotten so many trolls all over it, and this is going to be the answer to the trolls, which is New Zealand velvet deer antler has been used throughout history, and there's been a lot of studies on it, including these medical studies. They've shown that produces stem cells. There are stem cells. There are cells that produce this in the velvet deer antler. Okay, velvet deer antler is deer antler and moose and all these other things. The male, they grow new antlers. So this great big huge moose, they grow new ones every year, and then they fall off and they go back to nubs. And then as they get older, so the 6-point buck, the 12-point buck, it starts off as nubs, and as they get older, so it starts off as a antler starts off with these little nubs, and they have this little velvet, which is like little hairs. Well, there's underneath those cells are these new cells that create, and it's stem cells, and it's super fast growing cell that creates what's called osteoblast. It creates bone. First it creates cartilage, and then it creates bone. And then it grows super, super fast, and then they die off and they fall off. So what they do is in New Zealand, they grow these reindeer, and it's pristine conditions, basically super organic. They're grass-fed, and they're grown for that. And then they scrape this off. They do it humanely. They're not hurting them or anything like that. And they regrow them new every year. So they'll scrape the tips off and stuff like that. And then they dry it out, and then they put it in a capsule. And that can be then turned into an extract, or it can be just a powdered form. Well, these cells contain, so the velvet deer antler contains all these different cells, including what's called GAGs, which is glycosaminoglycans, which is, that's what chondroitin is, the glucosamine, chondroitin, high hyaluronic acid, phospholipids. These are the things that all of your cells, your skin cells, and in particular joints, are made of. That's why the MSM sulfonylmethane, as well as high hyaluronic acid, glucosamine chondroitin, is used for the joints. Again, it's stem cells, and it goes right to where it needs to go. But then there's all these other things that come with the velvet deer antler, the growth factors of human growth hormone, so it will produce more human growth hormone no matter what age you are. Anti-tumor, meaning it produces these cells that will then start going in, and if you're producing a tumor, whether it be benign or malignant, it will stop it. It will basically say no, 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 and it will stop. So the more of these tumor necrosis, TNF, tumor necrosis factors. So if we can bring these cells in, instead of having your body having to produce that, it says, oh, I can use that. IGF, which is these immunocells. And one of the top things over and over again, people say, wait a minute, your cells can't use these cells. Velvet, is it expensive? Deer antler expensive? No, it's not too bad. It's not that expensive. It's well worth doing. And you don't have to take a lot to really cause a good bang for your buck. But the deer antler, it provides these cells. I forgot what I was going to say about that. Oh, okay. Because people say, well, aren't the stomach acids destroying it? No, because what stomach acid does, think about when you eat protein, when you eat meat or eat any food, all the stomach acids does is it separates the proteins out and makes them into smaller pieces, okay? So if you have, let's say, your kid that built his, spaceship out of Lego pieces, if you destroy that and blow it up, all you do is go down to just smaller little pieces, right? And you can reassemble them. So all the stomach acids do is separate out and make it into smaller little pieces, of which these are then the things that will build those cells. So we'll build the immune cells, blood cells. Okay, so the velvet deer antler, it still maintains that. And then a person says, well, but again, that's a deer thing, all right? Another thing that provides these IGF cells is colostrum. Colostrum is the very first milk, bovine colostrum, which contains human active immunoglobulins, meaning it's an immune system. Same thing with the velvet deer antler. It's an immune system, and your body doesn't care if it came from a different animal, because when you strip it down to that small, it's the same. It's the same as your own cells. So it doesn't judge it. It doesn't say, oh, that's different. That's from an animal. Doesn't care. And people go, I don't believe that. Okay, then why does the glucosamine chondroitin work on your grandpa's knees? That came from a shellfish. How does it turn from a shellfish? Because dummy, I'm sorry, these things, I'm getting a little bit on these trolls for years. I've been going, that can't do that. It's been hiding right in front of your face. Of course it can do that. Of course you are what you eat, and the body can take these cells out from an animal, from a vegetable, from these different types of things, because there are stem cells in vegetables too. And your body, when it digests that, it just makes it into smaller little pieces, and then your body goes, oh goody, I'll use that, I'll stick that. So it doesn't have to be your own stem cells to become, it can come from another animal or a plant, and your body can use it. I think I've answered that, and if people really want to question, I can post all of the studies, all of this stuff. This is not me saying this. This is the scientific literature that's been saying this for decades. And if you go back to millennia, meaning people throughout the world have known this. They've taken it, they've done it, and they see a difference. And that's the empirical evidence that you need. My shoulder couldn't work, started taking this stuff. Whoa, look at that, it works now. Okay? All right, let's go back to, then bone broth, okay, and other broths. A lot of the Chinese medicines are in a chicken broth, chicken soup for the soul. Why? When you're sick is because actually when you boil the chicken carcasses down, it removes those cells and it infuses in those cells that include all of these things like stem cells. Is when they're ingested, they go into your body and they go into the cellular structure. And so if you say make a bone broth, like a chicken broth, or a beef broth out of beef bones, or even vegetable broth or mushroom broth, these are all the same, and you put some certain spices like turmeric and stuff like that. When it's combined with these animal based types of things, the cartilage and stuff like that, it brings those medicines, garlic, turmeric, which is the curcuminoids, deeper into the system than it would have if you took it just by itself. So traditionally, typically old-timey stuff was combined with some form of animal, either fat or protein. And again, the cartilage and all the stuff that comes from the animal protein. But again, you can also have vegetables. When you make a broth out of a vegetable broth, you are concentrating and removing these things, and then they are still active and they will go into your system. Same thing with the mushrooms. Mushroom broth actually contains and will rebuild these, especially the immune cells, to create new immunity. Basically better than the shot. Take it and you'll grow your own. Then we get into some of these other things, which these are huge in terms of creating lots of new stem cells and different types of stem cells for different, whether it be blood or blood. I'll go down the list. Broccoli, anything in the broccoli family contains lots of things, which is called SOD, superoxide dismutase. Again, this helps with the enzymatic action of the new cells. NAC and acetylcysteine, both of things you can take as a supplement, but they come within the foods, anything in the broccoli family. Citrus, a ton of in the citrus family produce lots of stem cells, plus it gives you the vitamin C. Kiwi, black currants, pomegranate, nutritional yeast. One of the other things in the literature states is that the B vitamins, folic acid, B12, B6, you can take these in supplement form, and those increase. There was huge increase in all of these very, very specialized for growth of new immune cells, especially liver, regrowing a person who has cirrhosis of the liver or liver damage or damage of the pancreas or something like that. You can regrow these specific organs with very specific types of stem cells derived from these particular type of plants. So nutritional yeast is very, very high in the B vitamins, but it also is literally high in the cells. What am I thinking about? Not colostrum. I'll think about it in a second. Nucleotides. So you can take the nucleotide pills, which is nucleotides. These are what the DNA is made out of, right? And the stem cells have DNA in it, okay? So you can provide, like I said, like Minecraft, is you can provide these very specific building blocks. Oh, you need to make new tissue? Let me give you just the basic. You need some cement, you need some pebbles, you need some stones, you need some wood. I'll give this to you and you build. I'm not going to tell you what to build. You know what you need to build out of it. Then in particular to build the bone marrow that makes red blood cells and white blood cells. Blueberry, beets. Beets has always been good for red blood. For fermented beets in particular, helps to produce nitric oxide, which is better for the blood, but it produces more blood. Blueberry, like I said, green tea, and then there's a whole world of what's called catechins. And the catechins would be things like apples, blueberry, kiwi, strawberry, beer, nutritional yeast, fermented products, cacao, chocolate, green tea, black tea, red wine. These are all things that provide catechins, which produces the stimulus of new stem cells. Garlic. Garlic is not only anti-infective, a good blood thinner, it will produce new stem cells. You can eat garlic, but you can also take it as a supplement. Plantain. Plantain is a weed that's out there. We show people when they come to our farm, if you ever get a bee sting or a mosquito bite, find plantain. It's growing in your driveway everywhere. It's very easy to find. Take one of the leaves, chew it into a pulp, and don't swallow it, but then make it into kind of like a poultice, and then put it right on a bee sting immediately. Put it on a tick bite, or put it on, like I said, a mosquito bite. And immediately the pain goes away and the swelling goes down. You will be so surprised, especially with a bee sting or hornet sting, how quickly plantain sucks the pain right out of it, okay? Folic acid, B12, which is nutritional yeast, but other things. Meat. A lot of the meats are very high, and one of this other thing that's very top is carnosine. Carnosine, which can be taken separate as a supplement, but the organ meats in particular, a lot of the fish, a lot of the, whether it be beef and pork, very high in carnosine, which has been shown to rejuvenate cells and extend cell life by regulating what's called senescence, meaning senescence is a cell becomes an old man or an old woman and just goes, and it forgets memory and stuff like that before it actually goes into apoptosis, which is cell death. So can you rejuvenate a cell that's starting to go into old-timey old man? Yes, carnosine, taurine, which is really good for the gallbladder, and creatine. All of these enes are actually part of the protein. They're amino acids, and they build, that's what proteins are. Proteins are made out of all these different lysine, arginine, L-theanine, these different types of carnosine, taurine. These are things that the bodybuilders use. So again, bodybuilders have been using this because that's stem cell therapy. They want to produce more muscles. They produce more muscles by working it out, tearing it down, and then providing the branched chain amino acids and all these other things, as well as eating really well to produce more muscle. And that's because it starts from stem cells. So it's been hiding, it's in front of us all over the place. We've always been doing stem cell therapy. The caveman has done some stem cell therapy. So this whole idea that it has to be some sort of medical procedure, no, not really. In fact, we do it all the time. And could you do it better? Could I really stimulate this whole process to do this? I know this has been a lot, but you can always press the rewind button. You can always call me 734-985-5891, and I can help you and I can guide you through this. And so if you're getting old and you want to rejuvenate, if you got an old muscle, you combine these things with very specific massage and exercises and biostimulation, including the kinesiotaping. I've saved so many shoulders from has to be surgerized, that hips, shoulders, all kinds of things that didn't have to be done because I worked on it and we put the specific supplements, we did the mud packs, I did all of these different therapies and rejuvenated to the point where these people went back to the doctor that said, okay, you're going to have to be here in 3 months to have it. They went back and they reanalyzed them and they said, I can't do surgery on you. And they're mad. It's so funny. They were like, it would be unethical for me to do it because look at how good it looks. And they didn't ask how you did it. They didn't care. They just said, we're just going to have to keep an eye on this because I don't believe it. And they, again, that's what they do, is they do surgery and that's all they know. But when you present them with something else that could be done naturally without the surgery, they almost take an offense to it because they're just so tricked into not believing it that it's got to be a hoax. There's got to be something. Even the miracle is something that they can't really get down with. But the miracle can happen. You can make a miracle, not only by praying, but the miracle is do you know how you were living and could you change the way that you were living? And many of these things is this expensive? Not eating is not expensive. Taking cold showers and cold baths is not expensive. It's free. These things, many of these things are free. And the most powerful things at the top of the list are not these expensive things. They are the free things. So, stem cell therapy, you be the stem cell therapy. It's Jason Eagle, your natural health authority. Until next time, bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.